Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is Fletch's review of Game 10 of the Premier League season in what has been a horrible and tragic weekend with the events on Saturday. It began with news of Glenn Hoddle suffering a heart attack and continued with reports of an elderly fan passing away at the Brighton vs Wolves game. And then came the helicopter crash that took place following Leicester City's draw with West Ham, which took the lives of 5 people, including Leicester City's own owner. My thoughts are with them and their friends and families, all who are involved in those tragic events. So let's just get through this review of Game 10 of the Premier League season. We're going to begin with Manchester City's 1-0 victory over Tottenham on Monday night. This was a game in which Riyad Mahrez got the only goal of the game, and I found it fitting that a former Leicester City member who helped them win the Premier League title in that memorable season a few years ago was the difference maker on the night and paid tribute to Leicester City Football Club. Mahrez got the only goal of the game on the 6th minute mark when he was played in on goal by Raheem Sterling after following his cutback, and Mahrez made no mistake in finding the back of the net. There were chances at both ends. Tottenham were just lacking a little bit of composure when they needed it most through the likes of Eric Lamela. Moussa Sissoko also had a chance. Harry Kane also had a chance in which a better touch would have let him have a better finish. Whereas City didn't really create anything clear-cut, but when they did have a clear-cut chance, they didn't properly make the most of it. And maybe you could put a little bit of blame down on the pitch, as of course this was the game where it was meant to be played at Tottenham's new stadium, but seeing as though Tottenham's new stadium isn't properly built yet, they had to play it at Wembley, and with Wembley hosting an NFL game the previous night, the pitch, fair to say, wasn't in the best condition. And to be fair, I think I've probably played on Sunday League pitches that were much better than that. Regardless, City win, City get the 3 points, and City remain top of the table. They retake their place at the top of the table ahead of Liverpool, who won on Saturday. Pretty good win for City. Never an easy task for Tottenham. I don't think Tottenham were much at the races today, but it's never an easy task. But they got the job done. As for Tottenham, poor week in terms of Champions League, poor in terms of today's result. They just didn't. They had a few chances, they had a few glimmers of hope, but it just wasn't good enough. And I put this question out on Twitter as well. I honestly have to say, Mauricio Pochettino, does he call it a day? When do we think that he'll call it a day? Because I personally think that he has taken this Tottenham team as far as he probably can. I don't see, unless he has big changes lined up team-wise, I honestly do not see how far he can take this team anymore. So that's just the big question I leave you on with Tottenham today. Next we come to Liverpool, who made it 3 wins in a week after a 4-1 victory over Cardiff to keep their title pursuit in a healthy position. Mohamed Salah got the ball rolling for the Reds, firing home a loose ball inside the Cardiff penalty area, and Virgil van Dijk had a chance to double the Reds' lead, but his header hit the post. It took till the second half for Liverpool to eventually get their second goal when Sadio Mane's fierce strike found the bottom corner. Callum Patterson then set up a potential interesting final 10 minutes when he halved the deficit, turning a deflected cross past Alisson in the Reds' goal, but Liverpool swiftly restored their 2-goal lead moments later. Salah found Shaqiri in the penalty area, and the Swiss winger showed clever feet to work the ball onto his left foot and coolly finish beyond the Cardiff goalkeeper Neil Everidge. Jurgen Klopp's men finished the afternoon with Mane leading a breakaway where he found Salah. The Egyptian waited for Mane to make his run, picked him out, and the Senegal winger's clever little dink finish over the unrushing Everidge meant he scored his second of the game and rounded off a great win for Liverpool. A predictable victory for Liverpool, but Cardiff did show a lot of grit to dig their heels in and not simply roll over for the Reds. Salah seems to be showing signs of getting back to his best, as does Mane, and Liverpool on the whole are starting to shift through the gears a little. Tough test next week when they face Arsenal, which is normally a must-see game, full of action, controversy, and most importantly, plenty of goals. As for Cardiff, today was seen as a free swing, and to be fair, they gave a real good account of themselves. They just lacked a little bit of quality needed in the final third at times to really test Liverpool, and also some better decision making too may have challenged the Reds a little bit more than what they did do. Regardless, they can take some positives away from this, along with the win they picked up last week against Fulham, and press on from here. Next, Alvaro Morata, Ross Barkley, Willian and Ruben Loftus-Cheek all got on the score sheet as Chelsea got back to winning ways against Burnley, who have had 2 games to well and truly forget. The Blues opened the scoring through Morata, who would have done so earlier had it not been for a great save by Joe Hart in the Burnley goal. The Spaniard was fed through on goal by Ross Barkley, and the Blues striker made no mistake in finding the back of the net. Burnley didn't create too much in the way of clear-cut chances, with only Robbie Brady's volley that was dragged wide and James Tarkowski's header over the crossbar being the closest they came to scoring. But they did make Kepa in the Chelsea goal a little bit nervous with some of the deliveries they were putting into the box. Barkley then turned from provider to goal scorer in the second half as his left foot strike from outside the penalty area found its way into the bottom corner. Willian then got in on the action when the game was goalless. The Brazilian winger hit the post, but on this occasion he cut in from the left and unleashed a right foot drive on goal that found the bottom corner. And to wrap up the game, Ruben Loftus-Cheek capped off an incredible week for the young Englishman by finding the back of the net after a loose ball inside the penalty area found its way to the midfielder, and his deflected effort went beyond Joe Hart and into the back of the net. What a week it's been for Ruben Loftus-Cheek, a hat-trick in the Europa League midweek and now a goal in the Premier League. Great to see from a guy who's been left frustrated due to spending most of the season on the bench. As for Chelsea, a good win. It put a little bit of pressure on City, who of course didn't play until the Monday night, but of course we all know that they won now, so at least Chelsea were doing their part. And also to get back to winning ways and doing it emphatically was good too. As for Burnley, a rough couple of matches they'll want to forget about. They made a few decent opportunities in this game where they could have properly tested Chelsea more, but they just lacked that quality and composure in the final third. And defensively, yes, Chelsea did get a little lucky with the ball kindly falling to them at key times during the key parts of play, but for the most part, Chelsea just sliced them apart. A slightly easier task awaits the Clarets next week in the form of West Ham United. Next we come to a guy who may have missed a crucial penalty last week, but this week Luka Milivojevic stepped up big time for Crystal Palace and made up for his disappointing spot kick last week by scoring 2 this week, in a game that saw Palace draw to the in-form Arsenal 2-2 at Selhurst Park. Palace had the better of the first half but lacked composure at vital moments of their attack to really test Bernd Leno in the Arsenal goal. Wilfried Zaha was lively and hit the post during that half, but Palace did manage to take the lead on the stroke of half time. A dangerous corner wasn't dealt with by Arsenal, and some clumsy defending by Mustafi caused him to bring down Shiku Kouyaté for the referee to award a penalty. Milivojevic stepped up and converted the spot kick, sending Leno the wrong way. After the interval, Arsenal equalised. A fierce strike from a free kick taken by Granit Xhaka found its way into the back of the net, despite Wayne Hennessy getting fingertips to it. Not long after the equaliser, Arsenal found themselves in front in rather fortuitous and controversial circumstances. A Gunners' corner was deflected into the path of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who managed to get a foot on the ball and help it on its way past the goal line. Goal line technology was brought into play to confirm it was a goal, but the deflection caused controversy as it came off the hand of Alexander Lacazette, but went unseen by either the referee or his assistant. Palace grew back into the game as they went in search of an equaliser and eventually got one late on. Xhaka, who was playing as a makeshift left back for the game, was involved as he was judged to have brought down Wilfried Zaha in the penalty area, and this time the element of luck switched teams as it did look a little soft for them, but Milivojevic made no mistake in stepping up once again and finding the back of the net. The result brings an end to Arsenal's 7-game winning streak in the Premier League, but keeps their unbeaten streak in the past 11 games in all competitions. Didn't really see this result coming, to be honest, with the way Arsenal have been playing in recent weeks and with the way Palace are inconsistent and been struggling to find goals. An Arsenal win seemed incredibly likely here. However, I was proven wrong, and the way Arsenal played didn't really surprise me either. They were slow, looked a little off the pace, and had a bit of a fortuitous element on their side with the second goal. But take nothing away from Palace. They played very well, they harassed Arsenal, pressured them into making mistakes, and at times played some decent football. I think maybe Xhaka at left back hurt Arsenal a little bit. Of course, he isn't a natural there, but with Kolasinac and Monreal injured, Unai Emery had very little cover there, and he'll be hoping that Monreal is back for the Liverpool game, or else this will be an area Liverpool will look to target frequently, especially with the likes of Mohamed Salah, Xherdan Shaqiri, and Trent Alexander-Arnold. Our next game brings us to Bournemouth, who continued their fine start to the season with a comfortable 3-0 victory against the Fulham side, whose defensive issues once again took centre stage. A quarter of an hour was on the clock when Timothy Fosu-Mensah fouled Callum Wilson in the penalty area. The referee, with no hesitation, pointed to the penalty spot, and Wilson himself converted the spot kick to break the deadlock. Fulham's Abubakar Kamara then tried to con the referee into giving the host a penalty when he stole the ball of Asmir Begovic in the Bournemouth goal. The Fulham striker stole the ball only to perform a horrendous and shocking dive, to which the referee saw through and booked him instead. Bournemouth doubled their lead in the second half through David Brooks, who fired into the net following Ryan Fraser's through ball, and moments after scoring, Brooks was on an attacking move again. That was until Kevin McDonald brought him down and earned himself an early day by receiving his second yellow card of the game. Bournemouth completed the rout when Wilson grabbed his second goal of the game, racing away from the Fulham defence and firing past Rico, the debuting Fulham goalkeeper. Another good result for Bournemouth, and they go marching on, and they'll be licking their lips at their next Premier League game, which is against Manchester United next Saturday. They keep up the pressure on those teams above them, and I just wonder, how far can this team go? They certainly have tremendous attributes going forward and are okay defensively. Interesting times do lie ahead for Eddie Howe's men. As for Fulham, they are in serious danger. No win in 7, 15 goals conceded in their past 4 games, and defensive issues are plenty. It ain't painting the happiest of times or returns to the Premier League for Fulham. They have Premier League leaders Manchester City to contend with on Thursday in Carabao Cup action, before a game with fellow Premier League strugglers Huddersfield next Monday, which is a must-win game for both sides. Next we come to Paul Pogba and Anthony Martial, who both scored as Manchester United defeated Everton by 2-1 at Old Trafford. The first half was rather end-to-end with little quality in the final third. Both teams' build-up play was there, but the final ball was lacking. Eventually, United made the breakthrough. Anthony Martial down the left cut inside and was tricked by Idrissa Gueye, and the referee pointed to the spot. On the replay, it looks a little harsh on the Everton midfielder, but there was no changing the referee's mind. After a run-up which seems to take him an eternity, Paul Pogba's eventual shot from the spot was saved by Jordan Pickford, but unfortunately for the England goalkeeper, the ball was parried back into Pogba's path, who quickly sorted his feet out to tap home into an empty net. Just under 5 minutes had gone in the second half when United doubled their lead. Pogba found Martial on the left just outside the Everton penalty area, and the Frenchman curled a great shot right into the corner to give United a 2-goal cushion. Bernard then had a great opportunity to halve the deficit almost immediately, but despite leaving David De Gea on the floor, his left foot strike could only find the side netting. Everton were then given a glimmer of hope in getting back into the game when Chris Smalling brought down Richarlison in the penalty area. The referee pointed to the spot and Gylfi Sigurdsson converted the spot kick to make it an interesting finale. However, United managed to hold on to take all 3 points. It's a big win for United and finally a reason for the United supporters and faithful to be smiling about. But with their inconsistency, it raises questions. Their next Premier League game is against Bournemouth, a Bournemouth side who are playing some good football right now and are doing better in the league than many had predicted. It will make for an interesting game next weekend. As for Everton, their mini-winning run is brought to an end. They lacked quality and composure in the final third, as besides the Bernard chance and the penalty obviously, they failed to really test United's defence and goalkeeper. They face Brighton next week, who are on a good run themselves, as another interesting game awaits. A late Wilfred Ndidi goal rescued a point as Leicester City drew 1-1 with West Ham. The result, however, was overshadowed by the horrible and tragic events that took place after the match, where the helicopter belonging to Leicester City's owner crashed shortly after takeoff. West Ham had the better of the chances in the first half and eventually took the lead through Fabian Balbuena, whose initial header from Declan Rice's setup hit the post and bounced through the legs of Kasper Schmeichel, but the Argentine defender was quick to react to fire into the rebound. It seemed pretty comfortable for the Hammers from there on out, right up until Mark Noble's challenge saw the referee draw a straight red card for the captain, and from there, Leicester could sense an opportunity. They didn't really begin to take advantage of the extra man till the second half, where they had several decent opportunities to equalise, but through either poor finishing or Lucas Fabianski's good display in the West Ham goal, or even through the crossbar, Leicester struggled. However, they managed to get a little bit of luck late on when Wilfred Ndidi's long-range strike deflected off Balbuena and ended up wrong-footing Fabianski and finding the back of the net. It's a good point for West Ham, all things considered. I did say Leicester would win, but I'm not too surprised by this result either. I just think that if Noble hadn't got sent off, maybe they could have saw the game through, because until that point, Leicester were poor and lacking creativity and urgency to threaten the West Ham defence. But a point apiece may be the right result, although I'm sure Leicester will be kicking themselves for not doing better with the chances they had, particularly in the second half. But on the whole, with the events of afterwards, all things considered, there are better things to worry about than just football. Our next game sees Watford, who earned a comfortable 3-0 victory over Huddersfield, and in the process heaped more misery onto the Terriers, as the away side are still without a Premier League win so far this season. The Hornets opened the scoring through Roberto Pereira, who simply ran through the Huddersfield defence from the left wing, beating about 5 players and then sliding the ball home. It looks like a great goal and take nothing away from it, but on the replay it almost looks like he just walked through the defence with no one challenging him. However, moments later, Watford secured themselves a second goal and a 2-goal cushion at that. Gerard Deulofeu from the right wing beat a couple of players and then from an acute angle fired into the corner of the net. The away side were then denied a way back into the game by the fingertips of Ben Foster when Chris Love's long-range drive was tipped onto the crossbar by the Watford goalkeeper to keep Watford's 2-goal lead intact. Late on in the second half, Watford rounded off their performance by adding a third goal. Isaac's success was on hand to strike home Kiko Firmina's cross from close range. Watford make it 2 wins out of 2 off the back of the international break, and also 2 clean sheets as well. Ben Foster is a big reason for that, and as he made 1 or 2 very good saves to deny Huddersfield a way back into the game. But further up the pitch, Watford are looking very decent indeed. They're another team like Bournemouth where people may have to begin to question how far they can go this season. Champions League is more than likely a stretch, of course, but a Europa League spot right now isn't entirely out of the question. But that question may be best left to a later debate and later on in the season. As for Huddersfield, they just can't win right now. No luck in the final third, blended in with a lack of quality at times isn't helping, and an early relegation battle seems to be well and truly on the cards here. Next week's game against Fulham is a must win for both, but a loss will give us a better idea as to who's more in trouble. We now come to the game at St Mary's, where a stalemate draw played out as Newcastle moved off the bottom of the table, only to 19th, mind you, in a goalless draw with Southampton. The Saints had the better of the chances throughout the game, with Mario Lemina's hitting the post with a flicked effort before Jack Stevens saw his header well saved by the Magpies goalkeeper Martin Dubravka. After the interval though, Southampton continued dominating and creating the better chances. Nathan Redmond and Cedric Suarez both saw their efforts blocked before Jack Stevens had another headed effort on goal that went wide of the target. And then Shane Long saw his side-footed attempt just go wide of the mark as the game finished goalless. The point suits Newcastle more, although it's another case of still not being able to find that win that they desperately need. Both teams here displayed, particularly in the final third, that they lacked that bit of extra luck, quality and composure when they really need it most, and it doesn't look good for either side going forward. Although you do fear more for Newcastle than you would for the Saints. Southampton on paper have more firepower, but just can't seem to be among the goals right now. They'll be hoping their fortunes in front of goal will be changing as soon as possible, whilst for Newcastle, it's the same old story of their entire season. And finally, we come to Glenn Murray, who was back on the pitch and back amongst the goals as his second half finish was a difference maker as he and Brighton condemned Wolves to a back-to-back loss for the first time since their return to the Premier League. Both sides had a decent opportunity to break the deadlock in the first half but failed to do so. First, Matt Doherty played a neat 1-2 with Raul Jimenez, but his shot went just wide of the post, whilst at the other end Shane Duffy saw his header go just wide of the target as well. However, that miss was soon to be forgotten about as not long after the restart the Seagulls went ahead. Glenn Murray's initial cross came out to Bruno, who fired it back across the face of goal to where Murray was on hand to steer the ball into the bottom corner and score his 100th goal in a Brighton shirt. Matt Ryan and the Seagulls goal once again was called upon to preserve the lead, making one or two very good saves late on to ensure Brighton took all 3 points. And not only that, but record their third win in a row and also their third clean sheet on the bounce. Great win for Brighton. I didn't think they would pull off the victory, but I've been proven wrong. I expected Wolves to come back with a response following their poor defeat to Watford last weekend, but when you have Glenn Murray in the side and he's in the kind of form he's been in at the moment, you always have a chance. It was great to see the striker back on the pitch following his nasty looking injury he suffered last weekend, and good to see him back amongst the goals too. As for Wolves' back-to-back defeats, and they look pretty poor in both of them. They seem to be lacking a little bit of quality at times in the final third, and at times it's like a little bit scrappy in the midfield area in particular from their point of view. Nothing to be too concerned about though. Everything that they've been doing previous to the last international break can return at any moment, but it's just something to keep an eye on for now. And that rounds up the Premier League results for Game 10 of this season on what has been a tragic weekend. Guys, let me know in the comment section what you made of the games. Who were you supporting during them games? What did you make of some of the key talking points from this weekend, mainly on the pitch? We all know about everything that happened off the pitch. And I think that's just best left to other sources to bring the full story out on that. I'd love to read your thoughts and opinions on the games down below. Otherwise, guys, hit that like button on the way out if you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button if you're new or want to see more content like this on the channel. Thank you guys for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Premier League review video. And I'll speak with you all again soon in another video. Take it easy, guys.